It's story time. 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 All right, we are back for episode 9. We just came from talking about this piece in front of us titled Puff. We talked about developing this practice earlier on, and here with Puff, we really ignite that practice and recognize where our life is going, what our life looks like, where are the different attributes of ourselves, where do they stand in this timeline, how are they connected, how are they presented, how do they see themselves, and how on a technical level, how was I going to continue to render this style in order to speak to all these abstract ideas that I'm trying to discuss in this series, where I explore myself, the multifacets of the self, the dualistic nature of the self, and how that was going to be explored through this practice with pencil and paper, and with the chosen motif that I stuck with throughout this entire series, the cannabis plant, the nug. Note the term icon nuggetry, derived from the term iconography, the creation of archetypal figures around a main concept on a visual plane with characters to define these things. The dragon being one of those characters, the yin and the yang being very important characters that divide the self into two branches that sprout and eventually connect. But before we talk about how this translates into the next piece, I wanted to keep this habit of breaking this stream with a randomly generated question that has nothing to do with what we're talking about exactly. Just to kind of shake things up in my mind, just rattle the thoughts, so I step into this discussion kind of raw and unfiltered. So the question that I came across on this randomly generated question website, it says, do you have a moment in your life you wish you could relive? I kind of want to answer that in two different ways, and they kind of reflect each other. So I don't know if anyone out there's ever felt this way about their long-standing friendships, maybe even family members, distant family members, just people outside of your immediate family. If you've ever wondered what the difference is, what the real differences are between how you felt about that person when you first met them and then how you feel about them now, given all of the things you've lived through and discussed and just got to know about each other. So with this question in mind, I've always wanted to relive the moment that I met somebody that is a long-standing friend for the first time I met them. But with all the knowledge that I have now about that person, I've always been curious to see if I could spot these attributes in them, knowing how they will evolve and grow, and if I'll see the same person, or if I see the difference, like how the person transforms given all of their characteristics that define them now. Would I act differently knowing who they are in the future in that first moment? Would I don't know, I just find it surreal, like how a person transforms, and I just wonder how they would look to me in that first moment. But I would also want to be feeling the same thing simultaneously about how I felt meeting that person, but almost like this deja vu of like knowing that I know them already, or like we've known each other for the longest time, almost like that cliche feeling like, oh, I feel like I've met you. And maybe that's the universe doing this desire. Like, you want to know what it feels like, human, to think you've known someone for a long time, to feel like you know them through and through, but you're meeting them for the first time. Here, how about a nice deja vu? So maybe I am getting that, but it's not as clear as I would like to relive. But that being said, a something that drives my art practice and builds the body of work throughout the beginning of my fabric series to now, probably even before that, but less consciously. There's this moment that happens as you finish a project, as you finish this piece, where you're building up to it, you're anticipating its completion. You also don't know if it's going to happen, or if you make that mark and then something happens and you're like, no, this needs to continue so I can really finish it. But there's this final mark where you decide, okay, I'm done, I can move forward, I can leave this behind. And each piece has its own moment that defines the significance of completion. And I chase, and then every new piece I chase that new moment. I want to relive that experience, but with a different fingerprint that defines its unique completion. But every new completion has this intent of reliving that moment where you're like, oh, what a relief, I get it now, and I see further. And every new piece, I want to relive that moment of self-actualization. But every time I actualize a side of myself or a layer of myself, it only brings me forward ahead of that plane to see something ahead that I need to now discover and explore. I just couldn't see that next level because there was this thing in front of me that I had to process through art to then see the next thing after, and it's like a domino line, and every new completion is me knocking down one domino. And we all know how satisfying it is to watch 1,000 dominoes in sequence like knock each other over, and sometimes the art process feels like that. But I want to relive the moment of completion over and over and over. But I'm not reliving the same exact moment. I'm reliving a gesture that leads to a new one. But yeah, that's that answer to that question. Let's find a good pun that can shake this up so we can move forward. Okay. When an artist meets his rival, what does he say? I challenge you to a doodle. Hey, I know how that feels. I know how that feels. I've had drawing duels or doodles with others. It was earlier on in my life, when I had more friends around me that were also artists growing up in like art school. And we'd play the drawing game, and then we'd wind up being inspired by the same piece, and then try to get the best outcome from that inspiration. And it felt like a duel, doodling, a duel doodle, a doodle duel, a doodle duel. Double D's. Those are the double D's I'm into. Doodle duels. Okay, we are ready to talk about this translation into the following piece. I think it's important to talk a little bit more about this piece before we make that shift over to the next one. I think it's just important to elaborate how active this piece is, how intense and both chaotic but harmonious. So much control, but so much energy being released. Uh, it's how I see living to look, living out your life. This intense purpose. At least the way I see my life. I have so much that I want to do. I have so much intention. I have so much purpose that I want to see fleshed out. And that becomes this mythical beast that intimidates me when I see it for what it is. And it can be the reason I don't want to move, but also equivalently the reason I must move forward. But as I was I was thinking back on what I said about this piece, I realized that this was an expansion of recognizing the yang energy. I have both the feminine and masculine figures in this piece, but it still revolves around this very active kinetic energy that I associate with the yang of the yin-yang balance. So much purpose, so much sense of control, so much structure. It's systematic. There's collision and aggressive purpose, and these deep insecurities and acting upon them. This intense level of confidence to match that insecurity, like a compensation. And I feel like all of that is very yang oriented. And I realized that also thinking about the next piece that comes after this, which I feel really taps into the yin side of things. I really elaborate what I want to achieve by activating the yin posture in my understanding of myself and how I present myself and posture myself. You'll notice that this dragon, you can't tell its supposed gender, but I find it to be very masculine, like a warrior. Not to say feminine figures cannot be this way, but on a cliche level, this feels like it's very masculine and aggressive. So I see it as this yang dragon, and to reflect that, I have this piece that is a feminine dragon laying there, similar to the piece I did with Mary and that figure laying on the buds. Not in any sort of lazy way, but they're satisfied. They're at peace. They can sleep. And I feel like a lot of people, in real life, when they can't sleep, they're hyperactive. There's so much that they think they need to get done, so much that might have to get done. Like they're convinced, and they can't go to sleep until they have a plan set for the next day or the next week, where they know they have this confidence, like, okay, I can make it through. I deserve this sleep, so I'm prepared for the next. But if you don't have that peace with yourself, you'll never be able to lay and relax and rest. And this piece kind of defines a place in myself that is, it took a yang process of very active and intense, a very active and intense creative process and practice to accomplish this reflection of this idea. But within it, I came out of it recognizing that there is this desirable place within all of us where we can find shelter in ourselves, our understanding of ourselves, so that we can find a place to rest before we go back out and fly into the world with our ambitions and our purpose. This piece, I think I said it before, is called Shade. And the shade implies a place outside of the sun, a place where you feel all right. You know, like it's 100 degrees outside, and you just want to get under the shade so you can actually feel the breeze, so that you can actually enjoy the world around you and not feel like it's beating on you. Or it might not have to be a tree. It could be a cloud that overcasts you on a hot day, and you're like, oh, what a relief. And it's that sense of relief that I'm trying to activate in this piece. You'll notice that my cat is in here. It's a little cameo to the initial inspiration, the muse that led me down this path, the confusion of finding the t-shirt in an altered state of mind and thinking that it was my cat, pulling the t-shirt up, stretching the t-shirt out, and freaking out about it not being my cat, but being convinced that it must have been my cat. Like in my mind, in the Schrodinger box of my mind, that was my cat, and then boom, it was the shirt, and then that shirt was like potential energy. This shirt could be sculpted into anything, and I'm going to show that to everybody and stroke that out like this is how I find my purrs, satisfying this intent to explore and define the ambiguity of textural vision out of context. And he's in there being stroked by my feminine side, my yin energy, my grace. And usually my cat is very hyperactive and very vocal, and he meows with a purpose. But here he's calm and relaxed, and he's just there laying with an old partner. And this was in the midst of my phase where I was after a bad breakup, and I was trying to fill the role, not with the intent of running through anybody, but I was hoping that the next one could be that place of rest, that place of spiritual and emotional rest. That can be a codependent relationship, but it was in one of these moments with this short partner where I saw her laying with my cat and saw how peaceful my cat was, that he didn't have to play to be appeased. I was always someone that wanted to play and wrestle, and I always felt like that's what my cat wanted because he was so into it. But he was just as satisfied by just laying there at peace, being stroked. And he was just so satisfied. I felt like he was so relaxed. And as I watched it, I was like, man, that's where I want to be with this whole thing, with my whole purpose. I want to find a place where I don't have to run around and chase a string or dive into a box or scratch paper or scratch my post. I as much as all that is important to my process and my practice, this is just as important, this place of release. It's almost more important because cats sleep, 16 hours a day? And so that's like, it should show this motif of the cat, the shirt, this purpose. Like, I should find this place of rest more often than not. And the dragon, this relationship with cameoing my cat, catioing him into this piece, I made a allusion to a position that my cat would hold while he is sleeping, and he's in his deepest sleep. He ends up rolling on his back, arching his back, and not to this degree, obviously. This is a long, segmented dragon. This is my lifeline that could hold any position that it wants. We saw earlier that it can tie itself into knots, whether that's good or bad. But here it finds a nice, gentle circle, an ellipse where it can be satisfied with its cohesion. It can meet itself at the end and be satisfied, and it resembles this very deep sleep that my cat enters. And he has his paws up, his belly out, eyes like closed more shut than you've ever seen a pair of eyes. Like, there's nothing that could disturb that thing. There's nothing that you would want to disturb that. Like, if you disturb that piece, you're a demon. And that's how the ego can be seen, like this purpose that's disturbing your peace. Like, why does it keep coming in while you're so relaxed? And it wakes you up and it says, oh, you got to get this done. Oh, you got to get that done. If you don't get that done, like, this is going to happen. That's terrible. Yada, 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 yada. And it's like, whoa, I was so peaceful. Why do I have to go do this now? But now that I'm here, I must do it. And then you can't, in those places, you can't imagine this posture, this place of rest. You just want to get it all done, and you don't think there's enough time nor space to get all of it done. But also, this dragon is constructed of all of the same textures, everything I drew in it besides the formation of the dragon, but I was referencing all these other things to inspire the form of the dragon. All the textures are things that I observed directly in life, just like I drew my cat's pattern here in this piece, or her hair, or the rolled joint tips, or the lit joints. Like, I reference all these textures directly from images that I took of different buds that I had directly in my life, that were part of my social construct with others. This both a motif but literal item that was shared among my peers and was enjoyed on a multifaceted level. I took those different strains and collided them together and collaged them together to become this general texture that would define a multi-dimensional scenery timeline that has all the potential of anything you might want to see within it that could define your life. And that's what these dragons symbolize. But it's this idea of life wanting to stay pristine and stay alive and preserve its life force and cultivate its life force, and it's all about the life. But there's no allusion to death, not in a negative way, but death in this more metaphorical way, where life is this hyperactivity, where you chase the desires, the ambitions of your ego, your purpose that you feel attached to, your corporeal self that has all of these life goals, like it. And then there's death, this idea of ultimate rest, this place of release and relief, although life never wants it. Like earlier I said, life can't imagine this place of rest. It only wants to perform. But when you're in this state of rest, it's almost like a disturbing disruptance where it's like, whoa. And you wake up as like a baby crying in this doctor's room, and the doctor spanks you, and you're like, God damn, like I was so at peace in that place of rest. Like, why did you disturb me? Why? What? Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to learn this. Oh, I got to make this happen. Oh, I'm this person. Oh, that means I got to do this. Oh, I got to meet this person. That person makes me. And then you're in this life, and you can't imagine death in this metaphorical state and in a literal way. But here I wanted to elaborate on this idea of rest, this shade, the ultimate shade, that darkness that opposes the light that is the life. And to illustrate that death, I started looking at all of the ashtrays that were left after all of the sessions, whether it was just lonely sessions or sessions with a partner or sessions with a group of people or sessions out at a campsite, and how we'd arrange that and how much would end up being piled up. Like the more life that was lived, the more ash was left. And I would take pictures of my favorite spots, and I probably look crazy, like with my phone, like taking a close-up picture of like an ashtray. But I was seeing all of these textures in it, but these textures that were filled with spent life. But within that spent and exhausted life, that death, there was so much more life to see. There was so much more to admire and appreciate. And be grateful for its existence, this opposing force. Without this opposing force, you'd be forever going in one direction, and you would never experience change. It would just be straightforward, one direction. And where do you, like, where's the purpose if you don't find anything that inspires change, whether it's an immediate stop and a return, or it's a shift in direction, this form of friction. So yeah, the dragon is resting upon this big bed of ash, and it's comfortable there. You would think like resting upon death would be kind of creepy or scary, just a little spooky, but we're all resting upon death. Like death is underneath all of us, and it's where we will officially resolve this life. Will be where we finally lay into the soil of our existence, and we'll experience the ultimate rest. But this is all metaphorical for trying to find a place of rest within a microcosm of life. And in this case, this is my process as an artist. My practice as an artist was me living my life, but I had to find these places in that practice where I acknowledged the need for rest, the need to let go of the pencil, to open my hand and not feel like I need to grip on anything. However enticed or inspired I am to activate my muse, it's important to take a breath, or we're all inhaling, but there's only so much space to inhale. You have to exhale. Or even in reverse, depends on how you see the inhale and exhale. You are constantly exhaling all of your life force, but you get to a point where you're holding your breath for too long. You have nothing left to exhale, and you have to take a new breath for almost just as long to match it. and find this pattern of breath work, of your practice, where you release as much as you take in. Otherwise, you're holding your breath in one direction or the other, and that's somewhat traumatic. You're choking yourself. There's actually a piece later on that discusses that choke, the inability to find rest. Because as much as I went over this with myself and acknowledged these things, it doesn't mean I knew how to find it in my life, how to bring it into a real, substantial, effective place in my life. I was just discussing it with myself through this process to help me spot things that eventually I can arrange in a certain way to create the alchemy that would lead me to finally laying down something in this active purpose. And even there's this big. At this time I was taking art history courses in Chinese art, and I was always inspired by the patterns that they would use to build their landscapes, and the cross etching, not cross hatching, but like their X's and Y's that would, like, literal like shapes, like X's and Y's that would build the structures that would be these mountainous or forest type things. And I was trying to tap into these in scholar stones and all of that, and I was trying to tap into these patterns from those things that I was learning from other cultures, like in Chinese art. So from this ash grew this like scholar stone, and scholar stones are these places of self-reflection in nature, where we explore the ideas of standing there as ourselves and letting the wind erode parts of ourselves, letting the water erode parts of ourselves and polish us into our fated shape that is our unique life. And from the ash grew this stone that erected from the sediment of death and became a new life, or a new essence, all constructed out of the same textures that I derived from ashtrays. It looks a lot more ornate than you would think an ashtray could be due to the stigma of ash. And the same thing could be said for death. Like, death has a stigma, so it's hard to appreciate it for what it is. It needs to be put in a new light, in a useful place where it can be applied towards your life, and your life can be applied towards your death and what they mean to each other. And that's why there's this relationship between this stone supporting this tree that's growing from the ash, from the sediment, from the concept of the ultimate shade, this place of rest. And it grew out and became a new life through recognizing this place of ultimate rest. It almost, in a reverse psychology type of way, it makes you want to live, knowing that there's this, like in the last piece, there's this death behind you or below you. You want to get up and go forward to kind of avoid that, and it creates this new practice that builds a structure with purpose. And trees in general, they bring us oxygen. They give our natural wildlife a place to be canopied and be protected and have a home. They give us shade from the sun. They're just good generally for our atmosphere and our ecosystem. And it's that sort of practice that I wanted to erect from understanding this place of rest. From any sort of dive away from my practice, I wanted to know that within that dive in the soil, a new seed was growing and would erect and become something that I would chase sooner or later. But with myself balanced and harmonized, the thing that would grow from it would be something useful, something beneficial to my ecosystem, to the ecosystem of the self and my relationship with my environment, those around me, and who is within me. So just like the shape of the wizard peak that was discussing a pattern, a habit, a practice to coming to a point, this practice shaped as this tree had more purpose. It had more character. It wasn't just chasing this point. It was kind of finding this ebb and flow and accepting the friction of life, these points of opposing force to life, and it builds this like bonsai type effect of a tree. And that's also a reference to the Chinese culture and Japanese culture, just the Asian culture of cultivation and manipulation of self and the environment, and building gardens within yourself and around yourself to give yourself this place of self-exploration, but also rest. And I kind of wanted to illustrate that through building my own bonsai tree with my purpose and my practice that composes that tree, and from that practice can sprout foliage, and that foliage would be new life and new activities and new memories and like new interactions with my community that would become these bodies of life that would cast a shadow over me in the best way, because they're protecting me from these parts of myself that want to beat down on me and make me feel like I can't move, or dehydrate me of that life force. And in these trees, there are all these characters that kind of discuss more specifically these moments in my life where I recognize this place of rest with another person or with myself, or just with a moment where I'm like, man, if I could activate this or cultivate this moment, or elaborate on this moment, or just expand on this moment, I could find more I don't want to say activate because that's yangy, but like I could initiate more places of rest and recognize that I can calm down for this moment. I can accept that nothing needs to happen. So you'll find all these characters hidden in these forms that are derived from the motif of life, the life force, your timeline. These memories, these ambiguous memories that can be all these things simultaneously. One moment can transform into another and another, depending on how you see it and how the light is cast on your life, what light you cast on it. And there's lots of memories with partners as well, and sexual references, these primal references that discuss this back and forth of being there for others. Although it was very codependent at this point in my life, I was very immature about what I needed and what I wanted to give, and what I felt like I had to have and what I felt like I had to give to find harmony. It could be for selfish reasons, but I knew that within this primal sensual exchange with another, there was this teamwork that would exchange like a giving force that could provide a relaxing moment for another, and then a reciprocal intent to repay that favor for another. So you're both simultaneously giving each other this place to rest. I think that's kind of like this deep rooted, like the deep rooted underlying purpose for finding a partner, finding a companion, because you take turns simultaneously being there for each other, and providing for each other, not like a seesaw, but simultaneously, so that you can grow into one practice that casts a a wide net over your place of rest so that you can sit in the shade and relax with each other. And if one side isn't doing what the other side is on an equivalent level, then one side of this tree wouldn't be as canopied as the other, and you would both be stuck on one side, feeling like the other side was never going to be regrown. And then you have less space, and then having less space in that shade feels like you're both hogging that space. And it's all revolved around one person, and there becomes a power struggle, and it's not a healthy tree. And it wouldn't look like this healthy tree. There's no balance there. And I say that in a more literal sense, but like I said earlier, I'm trying to harmonize these two dualistic parts of myself, and I'm trying to create a companionship within my own mind where one side, let's say the left hemisphere of my brain and the right hemisphere of my brain, to be more literal, like if one side is too activated without activating the other, then they'll never find harmony with each other. I'll never find like this physiological balance, and my Venn diagram of attributes would be so pointed in one direction and sharp, and could damage the other at any given time. And it wouldn't be a healthy relationship with myself. And I don't know. There's a companionship in my mind that's trying to find balance so that they can rest together, knowing that they got each other's back, that they're both watering this practice with their own viewpoint, and together they can make this place of rest. Otherwise, one will feel like they're overworking, and the other will appear to be lazy or taking advantage of the other side. And that can create a toxic masculinity or toxic femininity where one's compensating for the other's lack. But with harmony comes peace, and with peace comes rest, and with rest comes preservation of energy, and with preservation comes more potential energy to release into a new purpose. I had so much fun designing this tree. I felt like designing this tree was like clipping my own bonsai and deciding where it would go, and how it would sprout. And it's crazy. I remember this tree was maybe like 15 or 20 different strains of cannabis, just kind of arranged meticulously to fill the foliage. Like this is one, like the joints are sprouting out into the like what fills them is what's coming out. Like what fills the purpose is what comes out and becomes the foliage that can benefit the ecosystem and the atmosphere. And so much life can reside within this healthy body. There's also like memories like this where you see these characters are all holding up one character. It's not exactly referencing, although I've been crowd surfed before and I've been the person that was the hand below somebody, but there's this idea of support there, where within this intent to construct this place of rest, that place of rest is built by multiple facets of yourself to support you, this part of you that wants to kind of take a breather, but it's also a reference to how important your community is and how important you are to being a part of that community, where you exchange or you change your role as the person that holds someone up that's crowd surfing, that doesn't have to stand on their own 2 feet, and then being the person that has the chance to feel supported by your community, and how important your community is to establishing this place where you can sit under the shade, and relax and just take a breather, not have to stand on your own 2 feet and fight gravity. And I kind of wanted to visualize this entire intent, this entire purpose as this huge community, this crowd that you could crowd surf on and feel supported by. I love this guy fishing over here on the edge of this little this oil stream. I love always referencing this character trying to fish out, to catch and release these concepts, these realizations, these self-actualizations. There's actually this, I used to write milk. I would spill milk all over town, and he's hopefully going to cast a line and catch myself. And when you're a tagger and you're hitting the block, you're trying to put yourself out there so others can find, and you rarely do find yourself. At least I couldn't necessarily see myself being found by myself. It was all about being found by others, by your community. And this guy is fishing for that self, but it's on the other side of that pond. He might have to switch where he's postured, where he's sitting. There's a lot. I don't even want. You'll just have to. I'm just gonna zoom into areas, and if you see it, you see it, and make sense of it as you will. Sorry about the pixelization. It's not a great picture. And if I do it any higher resolution, this video doesn't record very well. So many hidden figures, so many memories. There's also like this guy, he's like kind of resting his arms on his knees, kind of looking sad, standing on the edge of this foliage. Also this character screaming on the edge. There's so many memories in this. Like I was trying to capture so many moments where I was struggling to find this place where I could feel shade. In the effort of trying to establish this place of rest, there was so much chaos that I had to bump into in order to explore the landscape to discover this place of rest. It's not easy. It doesn't just, at least for me, it didn't just come. I had to really excavate my area and create in order to establish a safe place where my mind could feel comfortable being here. I mean, there's this character taking scripts from the bow. Little guy laying on his belly, hands on his chin, just admiring. I was discussing like partnership and finding these people in your life that make you feel like you're at home, that you're in this place where you can fall asleep and you know that they're there, and that it was a reference to a more literal engagement with other partners in my life. But in hindsight now, where I currently live in my mind, that the most important companionship are these conflicting parts of my mind that need to find harmony. And if they can just find harmony with each other through my practice, then they can relax. They don't need to do all this. Like they need to recognize that it's been done and sit back and enjoy the view with each other. Like you're if you can really build a companionship with yourself, you're never alone. You always have someone to relay with and admire and discuss the world and all the things you could be grateful for with. Some people use like religion, where they have a conversation with God in order to find that companionship, that conversation with another to share their gratefulness. But I mean, take this as you will, but like finding the yourself in yourself and a real relationship with yourself. You kind of establish a similar conversation with this higher self, this higher being that is a recognition of yourself. And with that, you find peace. Like you're never alone, and you can move forward knowing that you have your back. And the closer you get to that sort of relationship with yourself, I feel the better you can interact with others, and you can share that companionship or that peace and that harmony with yourself with any sort of engagement with another person, and they just join the party. And you can initiate a conversation that stays with them and their selves, and that conversation might spark, it's almost like marriage counseling, where they, like, you hearing how another relationship's going and what they did to make that work makes you think about your own relationship, and in this case it's the relationship with yourself and the conflicting parts of yourself, and you're like, wow, maybe if I did this practice more, we could get along more, and then we could have a healthier relationship, and then I could be that light in the community that keeps that showcases harmony. So you could so I, as another person speaking as another person, so I can inspire that in another, and we can all cast this light, or build this place with each other where we can all sit below and enjoy the shade and enjoy the breeze, and only step into the light when we need to get that vitamin D, metaphorically speaking and literally speaking. But there's also this relationship with the self where you want to be, you kind of exchange this role where you're the person below yourself, this higher self, and you need to trust that when you reach out, that part of yourself is going to grab your hand firmly and pull you up. And the better relationship you have with yourself, the more trust you have in your intentions. You're not self-destructive, or you're not going to sabotage yourself. There's parts of us where a lot of us, they self-sabotage, and they might say like, oh, I got you, bro. And you're pulling up, and in that place of vulnerability where you're being pulled up and you're not really supporting yourself 100%, they let go and they watch you fall. And then, I don't know, but you also have to learn how to be the higher self that pulls up that intent to self-sabotage and says, no, hey, bro, this is what it's like to feel supported. See how worthwhile it is. Otherwise, you're going to know what it's like to self-sabotage your own, like, desire to self-sabotage, and like it's gonna be an eye for an eye type thing, or karmic. So let's just do this together. I'm gonna help you up, and then you're gonna walk up, do a couple steps, and then you're gonna help me up, and then I'm gonna walk up and do a couple steps on my own and help you up, and together we'll be able to reach this place on the very top where we are comfortable with ourselves as one, and we can be alone but be with ourselves, with each other, and then that person won't emit or project that dissatisfaction with the rest of the community, won't be casting this hotness, this sunlight that's going to burn us. It's going to be someone that you meet that you could tell is helping cultivate this place, this communal ecosystem where it's okay. Like, take it easy, take a breather. You don't got to do so much. We're all happy that you do it all, like, but take a breather so that we're not sad about how much you're doing, so that we're not worried about you, so that we know that you're taking care of yourself, and vice versa, that self is taking care of you. And it's not on all of us. We don't have to compensate for where you lack. We're all doing our part with ourselves. Man, this piece was so intense. I sharpened so many pencils. I did so much work to find this place. Just to find the idea. I rolled so many doobies. Broke down so many herbs. Lit so many tips. Passed so many joints. Had so many conversations about this. Came to my desk so many times. Also, this part right here is a paying homage to this place in my life. I won't go into too much, but it's this Ziploc baggie filled with a couple nugs, and it's just kind of flying over. But it's kind of a bonsai within the bonsai. This microcosm within this bonsai state of mind, where I'm trying to shrink this concept down into one place we can focus and admire, and then within that I'm creating another thing where we can focus on this intent to build a place to put this life, to exchange it with another so that they can relax. And there's at least growing up, I'm not sure how it is now, in places where this substance is still illegal or whatever, but the Ziploc bag was a common form of exchange where you got the bag, you took the life, you put the life that you trusted, it came from a good place that was well cured, well flushed, well dried, well trimmed, just well taken care of. This metaphorical concept in a literal in a literal form, put into this bag where you can keep it nice and pristine, pull the air out, close it up officially, and then hand that over to another person and be like, hey, this comes from a good place. This is going to help you relax. This is going to help you find that place of peace, that place where you feel comfortable resting. But that person needs to know how to open that bag, however simple it seems. They need to open this art. This art is my Ziploc bag. This means of exchanging these ideas, where they need to know how to open it and excavate what is hidden within this structure. This vessel is the word I'm looking for. And within this vessel is that substance that you need to personally pick out yourself and know how to break down the concepts in your own way and ingest it and consume and digest these concepts and process these concepts that I'm discussing in your own way where you feel comfortable, whether it's a joint or a bowl or a bong or a rig or whatever. Even hashish, there's so many ways to take in a concept, and then you need to know how to light it, to apply it in your life so that you can come into this new state of mind and move forward with your life with that new state of mind. So this Ziploc bag is so meaningful to this exchange, because I knew that I wasn't only doing this for myself. As important as this was to explore myself, I knew that what was left was being baggied up and was going to be passed to another person so that they could get what they need out of this harvest. And it's funny to think that a little clump of this is in this bag. Like, what people get is only going to be probably a little piece, but that little piece might inspire them to come back to the land here and try to excavate more so that they can get more out of it and really find what is within it that they can carry with them without needing the Ziploc bag anymore, without needing the substance, that they activated a part within themselves that they can carry forward in a more holistic way. Also, I think it's important to talk about this eyeball, the dragon's eyeball. It's at rest. This dragon's at rest, but its eye, which is closed here and is not taking in all this light, the eye is casting a shade over the retina, so it's not bringing in this light, and it can relax and not try to interpret everything. And the eyelid, which is still lit, these two joints that close, it's still lit. And you can see there's this little like wacky wiggling arm dude that comes from the smoke that's trailing from the tips, and he looks like a man that's dancing, that's happy to be there. Like, oh, finally, like you're giving it a rest. Now I can really move and groove and like be comfortable with myself for once. Not feel like anything needs to happen and just dance. I just find that really important. Also, within the ash, there is this meditating character just sipping on the bottom, trying to, like, in this place of rest, sit back and understand, like, what's going on here. Like, what is this life? What can I learn from this? And not only do they have one perspective, but they're sitting over here as well, trying to get a different view. Like, they keep coming to this place of rest and they try to admire or reflect on their life in a different way, trying to process all of this. There's also little house that resembles this hut of self-actualization at the very top, but at the very bottom, this house is at the very bottom, and it's this place of rest within this metaphor of death, this place of ultimate rest. And there's a shack waiting for you where you can lay and just take it easy, and the river will just run by and it'll be a nice scenic thing. But it's in this ash. There's this, you can't tell. The style it decontextualizes the subject matter from its source, that you can just admire life for what it is, and rest in it, and admire life going by. Also, this is a female dragon, so it has a vulva, yoni, and it comes at the central part of this dragon, the center of the belly, and trails down, and it's built out of the sands of time, which is, I reference Keef, the trichrome crystals, the dried trichrome crystals that would fall off of the plant, the things that really activate the high from this substance, and that leads to this birthplace for all of this. The thing that actually ignites this altered state is the metaphor for what births these thoughts and these realizations. And within that, I made it look like this Mother Mary, the mother of God. But I mentioned that this relationship with God that you could have is a relationship you can have with yourself, and it's giving birth to, or this feminine side is giving you the space to give birth to yourself, a more peaceful and self-aware, like self, and you see her face and her feet at the bottom and her hands in the cloak. And there's also this dragon paw that is trying to hold on to the sands of time, just like the other one, but it's in this bag, so it's more protected from its claws and its grip, other than unlike the Yang dragon, which was gripping a glass hourglass, and it's shattered and it's just spilling. But there's still this part of myself that is that wants to live, even though there's a place of rest. and there's this intent to preserve my energy in the sands of time. There's always this little part of myself that's untying the string and letting it pour out, and then that the sands of time are pouring out onto the ash of life lived. It's trying to cover up death with more life. And there's a part of me that was probably sitting like this character on the ash, but because all of these sands of time poured on top of the ash that it could have rested upon, my first thought is, oh, let's build a sandcastle out of the sands of time. A sand of time castle. Oh, I also got the Ziploc baggie over here being lit and enjoyed. This is one of an archetypal character that has opened the bag and has activated it and is in this place of rest and peaceful self-awareness and state of grace, and she's passing it along to a typically hyperactive part of the self, this desire to pull out life from life. And it's okay, you can just relax and just focus on purring. And I have this tail of the dragon is built out of all of these doobies that resemble the shape and structure of this tree. And from within this place of rest kind of emerges, it's almost like molting, and it emerges this intent of life. Within rest, there's new life that can sprout from the opportunity that you give yourself to rest and process everything. And this process of life and death and life and death and activity and rest is this infinite process that over time culminates into a higher state of awareness and being, kind of suggested by this infinity sign. And then even from there, it leads to this place even further that's lit. They all look like these figures that are walking. They're marching to the ultimate place of rest, the ultimate shade, which is this void that canopies all of life, surrounds us from all sides, and they reach this portal where they're lit and ultimately activated, and then even the smoke where their mentality, their essence, their ephemeral self is now they burned and they evaporated, and then their self is this ephemeral form of themselves that continues down this path together and then fades off into the void, which is illustrated by this trail of smoke that reaches the white. And all of this goes somewhere after the fact. But all right, I think that's enough to be said about shade. I've seen some of you guys are repeating viewers, and I appreciate anyone that has been watching these videos, especially if you got to this point. I really appreciate you lending an ear and witnessing this excavation of all of this. It really means a lot, even more than doing this for myself. I'm happy to know that it's being passed along. Other people that could benefit from these concepts, however far-fetched some of them might be, or most of them. I don't really know how it's coming across. I just know how I feel. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here and listening in. I'm excited to continue this process, and I'm even more excited to finally get to the Peillustration series, where there's more of a storyline, and here we're really building the Elder Scrolls of archetypal structure and foundation for what carries the story, the value of the story that comes through Pi. So it's important to get through all of this, but the closer I get to starting my new Peillustration, the more excited I am about discussing that journey where Pi is born or reborn, and then Pi grows into what it is now, into the journey of the pilots. But all right, that is that. Let's watch another Peibi Playhouse episode, and I hope you enjoy that. And as always, have a great day, have a great night, and have a great time in general. Peace.